Welcome back to part two of triaging heroics. We've already taken a look at two issues. We're going to start off with a third. This is a feature request, automatic generated web admin UI. The auto-generated CLI is already very useful for admin tasks for an API. But a simple web-based admin UI GUI may be more helpful. Changes are options in CLI to forms, blah, 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 method in CLI. GUI is less error prone and more helpful for non-tech people. Yeah, I mean, cool idea. I would say, like, the question here to me would be, well, I mean, first of all, it's like, mentioned in 2014. So 6 years, zero comments. Like there's layers to a feature request. One is it's like, what's the context, what's the opportunity, and what's the implementation. So context here, they've given a lot of the context. They're looking for easier, less error prone, more accessible, non-tech. That kind of makes sense. Opportunity is they're saying they want a web interface. It could be a web interface. Hey, it could be great. Here's what it could look like. And then implementation is very short on details, but they want they want this to be part of heroics. They want this to come baked into this. And I can understand and empathize with the context, and I can understand the opportunity, and that actually does sound kind of neat. Maybe maybe a little scary, depending on how you want to shave that yak. But I think where this fails for me on the test is like, does this belong with heroics? Does it make sense to if this was code, if this already existed, does it need to be in this library? And I don't think it does. And so I would, if this was proposed today as opposed to 6 years ago, and I'll write as though that's the case. I will say suggest, hey, what if you like? I'll give my feedback on the opportunity and the context, and then say what I think about the implementation. Like, hey, let's feel free to go for it, but make it its own thing. Use the internals here. Let's see what kind of an API you end up needing. Like, do you end up needing deep integration? Is it impossible to do on your own? If not, if it's successful, if it's really popular, maybe we can consider integrating it in later. And so that's what I'm thinking. The extreme delay. It's not necessary. It's not strictly necessary to always be apologizing. I was a waiter in high school and college, part of college, and it just, I don't know, like it's people like this person took time out of their day to open up an issue and think of a way to help the community. Is where they're coming from. And then nobody responded, and like that's just kind of a crappy experience. And so I'm not really apologizing. I'm not saying sorry really on in terms of my behavior. Like this is this is not a thing I've maintained. This is like the first time I've ever gone through issues here. I've made a couple of commits to it, and likewise with you don't necessarily need to say sorry on behalf of other maintainers, but it's just like, sorry, it's not the greatest experience. And yeah, again, that's just my personal preference and flair. Yeah, it's like, even as a waiter, it's like if the steak doesn't is too fatty or something, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, well, it's it's not it's, it's like totally not my fault. But that it's like it's more about the empathy than really, I guess, the words and blame. So anyway, sorry for the extreme delay. Idea of fine. spell integration. Integration. Right. Also misspelled necessary. Sorry for the extreme delay. I like the idea of simplifying API access for power users via a web app. I wonder if it's necessary to tightly couple it to the code base or not, though. I think a good path forward would be to make another third-party library that utilizes heroics to generate such a site. If it's popular, then we can revisit a deeper integration. Yeah, I mean, basically I'm telling them no. But instead of focusing on the no part of it, I'm focusing on the, at the end of the day, they want to achieve a goal. They have an idea of how the world could look. The world could look like it has this app, and I want to. My no is based on me being protective of this code base. I don't want to feature creep. I don't want to maintain. If it makes sense to maintain some feature along with the heroics code base, then by all means, or bug fixes, for sure. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that there's, for lack of a better word, synergy here with this idea and what we've already got. And so I want to help. Maybe they've never actually even thought of, oh, hey, I could make this a library, or I could do this some other way. So I want to give them a path forward. It's kind of like as a door closes, a window opens, or something. I think there's a phrase along those lines. Oh yeah, and if I didn't have commit, I would say I think let's close this issue, and I think that would be good, and that would be helpful. Wow. Okay, 8 minutes for that. 8 minutes to say no. And this is that's part of the reason why I really want a lot of people, hopefully, triaging issues. Like when I respond to issues, I take a really long time. And I think that's the right way. I think it's like slow food, slow issues. I want. It's so fragile. People's involvement in the community is so fragile, and I really want to support anybody who wants to get involved. And even when it's a bad experience of having an issue closed or having a feature request rejected, I want to find a positive way to invite them to stay in the community. Granted, yes, it's from 2014. That window's, if it was going to close, it's closed. But yeah, and that just takes so much time and so much effort and so much energy that it really takes a lot of people. It either takes a ton of time or it just takes a lot of people. And this is something that everyone has some time, everyone has some empathy. And that's really a undervalued resource, publicly undervalued resource. I personally value it a ton. And it's something that you can really, really help with. Okay. Next issue, errors should go to standard error. Stderr. Standard error. Dan is an employee. Is Dan still an employee? It's hard to keep track. Also from 2014, I accidentally ran, blah, 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 when I should have used -h. The error output went to stdout and got redirected to x.rb. Okay, so in scripts, you have standard out and you have standard error. Those are your two output mechanisms. Generally, it's like how do I how do I show this? So if I curl this, you're going to see some status indicators here. And I believe the status indicators, maybe you won't see status indicators. I thought you would. Let's see. Is git clone. Um, okay, is that all? Let's see. Ah. Oh, okay. Where did that go? Interesting. Was that all the standard error? Okay. Yeah, I have no idea how to show this off the top of my head. Um, but I guess we saw it previously. With some deprecation warnings. Here are these deprecation warnings. Um, are those I believe the deprecation warnings are in standard error. Um, yeah, in general, it's like errors and warnings go to standard error. Everything else goes to standard out. And the reason being, you might want to, like, let's say you wanted to capture this output, like you wanted to capture this usage output and then do something else with it. Like it doesn't make a ton of sense in this scenario, but like in the Heroku, um, like the Heroku command line client, you can generate JSON output, and you might want to send that through JQ. You might want to like parse it, and it kind of stinks if you have this JSON in your standard out, and then you also have just these random error messages, and then you can no longer parse it. Is this? I'm curious if this is. Yeah. So in this scenario, let me see, cat out.tmp. So you can see this is everything that was standard out is just this usage, and that all makes sense. And then this, even though we are saying, hey, send us stuff to standard out, we're saying like send the output of this command to this file out.temp. We still get this warning, and that's because the warning is coming to standard error. There's a way to redirect it. I can never remember the syntax. It's like and one, maybe? And one. I know it matters which side I put the and ampersand on. Is that going to work? No. It doesn't matter. Yeah, there we go. And that's if... that did not work either. Okay, yeah, I would have to Google it. I can never remember it. Anyway, that's what they're saying, is that on an error, on an exception, the error output should go to standard error and not standard out. This is kind of like a philosophical thing. Like it's sort of framed as a bug. It's like in between a bug and a feature. Here's a question. Rogues generate -h. Does this out.tmp okay, yeah, so it still reproduces. If we treated this as a bug, and I'm triaging it, the first thing I want to say is, oh, I can reproduce this. Where does heroics generate come from? Okay, that's not the local one. So let's... Is that... Yeah, okay. There we go. So we're going to let them know that we can still reproduce it. So I can still reproduce it. I agree that, like let's say from an experience point of view, like as an experience bug. If I'm just running this, I'm like, oh, great, it worked. But it didn't. Oh, I would say that's another bug. But we could log that as an issue. I don't think it should return a success either, because it's not successful. It's saying that's not accept. Params only allowed when used the first form. So yeah, it looks successful, but we should still get something. What does heroics generate do? Does it generate a file? Bin heroics generate. It's not commented. What does heroics generate do? Last commit was 3 years ago. Yeah, I think so. This is the recommended usage of it. Personally, I don't think it's great. Just for like from a usability standpoint, like I think it would make sense to me if the instead of like it's not piping, redirecting, I guess, is what we're doing with standard out. Instead of redirecting to a client.rb file, if we alternatively we could give it like a flag. You could imagine a world in which instead of this, we said like output equals, and then it gave us just like, I don't know, anytime you're doing something like using standard out as a like feature, limits you because of this, right? Like we wouldn't see any errors. We don't see any standard out if somebody like puts a warning or something. Like it's really common. And so like I think this would be a better option. So I want to say that. And like again, this is from 2014, so I don't think any of this is going to be implemented. But just as an example, if the just as an example, so from an interface perspective, cannot spell. Oh, it's a comma. I cannot grammar. From an interface perspective, I think it would be more clear and less error prone if the command took an explicit file input, something like this. Otherwise, I agree that putting warnings and errors to issues. I'll also mention this just at the same time. At least is documented somewhere. Ideally, I would make a new issue for it. So the exit code should be non-zero. Okay, so Yeah, and also if you didn't know all of this, you could ask for some clarification. You can do some research, as I did. It's like, oh, we found. Wait, is this expected behavior? How is it expected that you use heroics generate like this? Can you reproduce it? These are all things you can ask. You can even ask for them for clarification. If you weren't able to reproduce it, you can always ask and say like, hey, I wasn't able to reproduce this. Can you give me more information? So I'm saying, okay, I'm still seeing this behavior from an interface perspective. Like here, this could be more clear. Otherwise, I think we should put warnings and errors to standard error. And then, hey, there's this other thing that I noticed. You know what? Let's make that its own error or its own issue. So that's a hefty comment, I think. It's pretty good. 22 minutes. Wow. I'm doing like 10 minutes, 10 minutes an issue. All right. Well, here we're going to create an issue. So this will be pretty fast. Let's make it a little bit more clear instead of sending to temp out.temp. Let's grab that. Go. Yep. Okay, I think that's pretty good. We said what we're seeing, this success status code. We gave a little mini reproduction. Could be better, but I think it's fine. And then what we expected. That's important. What you expected to happen, what actually happened, and why the two are different. So I'm gonna create that new issue. All right. Okay. I'm gonna cut this off now. I'm gonna cut this off and do another one. 23 minutes is long enough, but we still have issues to go through. So stay tuned.